Hi, this is Professor Steve Solosky, and today we're going to talk about the basics of Google Flights. Google Flights is a great tool to help you research and find the best air itinerary for you. So let's get started. First thing to do is to get to Google Flights, which is google.com/travel/flights. So then you're presented with a screen that's going to ask for some basic information. It's going to ask if you want a round trip, maybe a one way, or perhaps you're looking for a multi city flight. We're going to talk about those other two in a different video, but right now we're going to focus on a round trip. It's going to ask how many passengers you need to book a flight for, and it wants to know the fare class: economy, premium economy, business, or first. Then Google Flights is going to want to know what city you're flying from and where you're flying to. So I'm flying out of New York. So I'll put in New York and I'm given a choice of airports. And the one I'm going to take right now is JFK. Let's take a nice trip to Paris. So I'll type in Paris and select Charles de Gaulle Airport. Now it's going to ask me for dates. Wouldn't April in Paris be nice? So let's go to April and I'm going to select April 5th and return on the 19th. Now, that's about all Google Flights needs to know to research some flights for you. Once we put in all that information, I can click the Done button, and there you go. You're presented with a whole bunch of flights. What's on the screen, and in this case, 72 more. Now, we might want to narrow that list down, and Google gives us options to do so. For instance, I may want a nonstop flight. I'll click that, and it will update my list with only nonstop flights. I might want to fly only with a particular airline or airlines. By default, when I do the original search, it presents me with every single airline that flies between the two cities. But I might want to fly only with SkyTeam Alliance Airlines, so I'll click that button there. You may want to put down the number of bags you're going to check. You may want to put down a maximum price that you want to pay. You might want to restrict your flight to certain departure and arrival times. You can do this for the outbound flight, and you can do that for the return flight. You can indicate the connecting airport that you'd like to go through. It doesn't really apply to this search because these are all nonstop flights. And we can also specify the duration of the flight. Last thing that I want to do is get stuck on one of those 30-hour flights. So I want my flights to be under 15 hours. Okay, and here's the refined list. The filters make things a little bit more manageable. Um, Google suggests some departing flights, and there are other departing flights. Now we can look at these flights in different ways. Let's look at a date grid. And if our dates are flexible, it's going to give us options for different dates with the associated prices. It just so happens that the date we're selecting is the best price. But I could go the day before for the same price. But if I go the day after, it's a little bit more. The date grid allows me to view that. I could do a price graph. It shows me the price of my flight in relationship to flights on other days. That's another handy tool to use. I can also sort my flights by what Google considers to be the best flights, by price, by departure time, by arrival time, by duration of the flight, And I don't know anyone who's ever done this, but you can sort by the amount of CO2 emissions on your flight. Okay, so let's pick some flights. I really like this Air France flight that leaves at 11:50 p.m. So I'm going to click on that one. Then for my returning flight, I like this Air France flight that leaves at 3:40 p.m. and comes in at 6:15 p.m. Although it's a little bit more expensive, I can see that. I prefer that departure time. So now I'm presented with the round trip flight and a couple of more options too. It shows me what an economy light flight is and how much more that costs. By default, it gives me the economy light flight. No refunds, free change, seat selection, standard seat, one free carry-on, and the first checked bag available for a fee. Or I could select economy standard for $150 more. Again, no refunds, free change, free seat selection. I'm not quite sure I understand that because it isn't free because they're charging me another $150. Or I can select economy standard plus two. But let's stick with economy light. And now I can expand information on the flight. So for instance, it tells me that this flight is leaving on Tuesday, April 5th at 11:50 p.m. from JFK, arrives at 1:15 p.m. plus one or the next day at Charles de Gaulle Airport. Tells me the airline, the fare class, and the flight number. So the information that you want to have if booking directly on the airline website is a departure date, the departure city, the arrival city, the airline, the flight class, and the flight number. Sometimes they don't show the flight number on Google Flights if it's what they call a codeshare flight operated by another airline. But in this case, they do show the flight number. Let's look at the information for the other flight. Here we go. We return on Tuesday, April 19th. We depart at 3:40 p.m. out of Charles de Gaulle Airport. We arrive at 6:15 p.m. at JFK. The airline is Air France. It's an economy flight, and the flight number is AF10. Again, you need that information. The date of departure, the time of departure, the airline, the fare class, and hopefully you'll have the flight number too. And then you could go right to the airline and book your flight. Google Flights does put a button on the screen that will bring you directly to the airline website if that's what you want to do. So that's it. That's the basics of Google Flights.